Hi, this is Aera, and you're listening to Talk to the Artist. Today's guest is Coloray, one half of Tunnelvisions and founder of Intercept Records. We speak about his approach to songwriting, the creative process, collaborations, meditation, virtual reality, and new ideas for the future of music. This interview comes in two parts again. One half was recorded early this year, the second part just a few days ago via Zoom. The first 10 minutes of our interview are unfortunately lost, but let's just say we were mainly talking about coffee anyway, so you did not miss much.
Fucking. Okay. It seems. Can you talk?
Yes, hi, it's me talking.
Perfect. Now it's working.
Okay. So
I'm gonna have to watch it. So I want to talk about your vocal and your singing. So I think when you're recording vocals, it is kind of important to get it sounding good from the source.
Yeah, it's actually a pro technique to do like that. But you first of all spend years on making music that's not properly recorded and try to fix it in the mix. You know, like fix it in post. That's what we say. But after a couple of years experience, you sort of know how to get a good sound out of what you do, either being like a synthesizer or a voice.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm mostly concerned about is if you can still use the coffee as a metaphor. You can make the same sort of coffee every day, but what I try to do is make a different cup of coffee each day I go into the studio. Mm-hmm. So most of the time I always try different approaches. I don't try to be stuck in one different workflow and one different technique. And I also try to make my voice sound like different people. So I sort of have like different personalities on records. So it just feels that every time I go into the studio, I can sort of be someone else in my voice.
Do you imagine in your mind that person that you are?
I think it's more challenging the person I am within myself.
Yeah.
I think that's mostly it. A lot of time is spent on just finding this out, who you truly are. And especially with me singing on top of my productions, is just basically a psychological exercise to dig deeper and deeper into who I am. And it took me so many years to sort of find this sort of subject matter and to find the physical voice that sort of complements my personality. But I think now, and it's just starting like a year ago, I sort of found that, yeah. What I do now is I do sort of imagine that sort of person in my head. But it's mostly just me trying to be the most me as I can, if it makes any sense.
Do you also think about what it does to the listener? Because I must say, when I was approached to do the remix for Guava, the vocals really, really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And the way it was sung, did you sing it and did you then change the voice, or how did it?
Well, I actually tried singing before, but when I wrote the vocals, I sort of knew that it had to be a choir.
Okay.
So I wrote the lyrics. It actually was a funny story that I was running while Emil, my partner, and I were making the music. I said, okay, I gotta head out for a little bit. I'm gonna go run. I'm gonna think of some lyrics. So I was just running and having the beat in my head. And then all of a sudden, I just heard the choir singing the vocals that I was sort of writing in my head. So I don't always write down lyrics. I just do them in top of my head. And then I came back and I said, okay, listen, dude, you gotta trust me on this. It's gonna be quite a process, but I'm gonna get us a choir to sing this vocal. And I know we have never done this before, but I know some people who know some people. I want to get a choir to sing this. So we just did it, and we didn't know how to record it. We just basically put up two mics and set it in a room, and it was a children's choir from a church. My singing coach was giving lessons at, and we recorded it, and we just knew that we had magic in the recording, but it actually took us so many tries in the production to sort of make it fit with the right sort of concept in that. And but I always knew that the vocals could have a sort of healing effect. And that's why I also asked like a church children's choir, because they have the sort of timbre of it sounds angelic right away. And it's also pretty raw because the girls weren't like singing pure perfect notes. So it was actually just, it felt good to do it like that.
That's amazing. And I must say I felt it. That's why I was asking if you maybe also have the listener in mind. Because when I also listen to other songs of yours, it does something with me almost physically.
Yeah.
Where I feel like,
wow, it's nice to hear. By the way.
Stand up straight. Like I feel like I'm 3 centimeters higher.
Yeah.
And it really raises your level of confidence.
Yeah.
In a way, that at least for me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that just happens through the process of like trying to find your own voice and doing it like that. But I just wanted to say that this is how it
comes across.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty cool that you say that, man. Thanks, because this is, I think, the biggest compliment you can get as a songwriter, that it sort of evokes an emotion out of the listener that you want to evoke with yourself. Stand Up Straight, for example, I wrote it in a time where I was just not feeling good about myself. I was super insecure and some bad things had happened in my personal life. And I basically wrote a song for me to sort of motivate myself to be proud of who I am again. And this sort of thing, just standing up straight, being energized, just looking into the future and just going for it. The fact that you are feeling this emotion, it's very special that I was able to put that raw emotion in there, because it's all subconsciously written. A lot of the vocals I do are just basically me standing in front of the mic and just singing the first thing that come out of my head. I don't really write a lot of vocals, so also with the Gazing Eyes track on Intervisions, I just stood in front of the mic and sang the first thing that came on top of my head. So it was all just super subconscious.
Do you know when you're in that state where you're like, give me a mic, let me sing? Or is it like you're kind of forcing yourself to do it? Like,
yeah, it's most of the time it always starts off with melodies anyway. So I might be working on a production in my studio and head home, go eat with my girlfriend, and then all of a sudden I would just, I don't know, hop into the shower and would get this melody. Let's say, for instance, with Guava, I was just running, and subconsciously I would have like, da, da, da. And when I heard that melody, I instantly put words to that. But the melody comes subconsciously when I was doing something else physically. So most of the times when I'm just busy doing stuff, I get the melodies. So I always know the melody when I go in front of the mic. But when I stand in front of the mic and I put my headphones on, it's just sometimes like the whole world sort of disappears and I can really get into the music. And then I know what sort of words to form. And it's not always like this. Sometimes I just write some poetry and I try to fit it on top of a track. But the best songs are, like I said, totally subconsciously written. And I still don't know the magic behind this. It's like you said, you make music too, right? You just record and you start doing stuff. And for me, it's the same, but then with lyrics.
I think you just have to be there and work on it. And work on the right circumstances so that these things can happen. Because if you weren't there to record them, if you were doing something else, it might be gone just like that.
Yeah, but in real life, this basically means me being locked up in the studio a lot of times a week. And especially now that it's become a sort of full-time thing, when I'm not touring, I'm just basically sitting in the studio trying to wait for this inspiration to come. But I start to notice that this inspirational thing is mostly based around real life experiences, not in the studio. So I try to read a lot of books, I try to read a lot of newspapers. Lately I've been super inspired by politics, especially American politics, and just seeing how the whole world of politics develop, and then it sort of reflects on me as a songwriter as well. So now I'm just writing super political stuff for some reason. I don't know why, I never did this before, but it's just coming out. And it's always inspired by real life events. So one thing I would give as advice to myself is not to sit too much in the studio, but just live life a little bit and just... Yeah.
Especially when you're working with vocals where you have something to say and tell, as opposed to house techno, which most of the time works without any lyrical content or anything that's very precise in what it's trying to say. What I also feel, or what I really liked, is the way you use pauses, like silence. When
I was 15 years old, just writing like stupid rock, emo lyrics on my guitar. But once I started playing a lot with Tunnelvisions, I really started to understand dance music. You know, really start to feel it deep from within. And Tunnelvisions mostly plays just a form of house music, but like the groove and the whole thing really started to sort of attach to my personality. And when I started to make music again, I started noticing that if I wanted to dance and sing at the same time, I should start singing less words. And then the sort of words became more of a rhythmic element in the track that could have either been like a cowbell or whatever, but it was just an extra instrument. And that's really with the last EP, I think I sort of found the fusion between like vocals and rhythmic sections, which I before wasn't really able to get for me that well, but now it's really started to fuse a little bit. I think it's mostly experience, if I'm being honest. Just being around dance floors a lot, playing a lot of music, listening to a lot of music.
I think you did one track with Eagles and Butterflies.
Yeah.
And were you in the same room? Did you send stuff back and forth?
Yeah, I actually think we sent a lot of stuff back and forth, but most of the process was just spent between me and Chris, just calling and just talking about anything.
Yeah.
It was just mostly getting to know each other personally. And like before I really started doing music with Tunnelvisions and Coloray, I used to get hired as a songwriter. So I would just go into someone else's studio and write songs and write music. And everybody was always like, hey man, I want a hit. I just want something that sounds like this or something that sounds like that. And this sort of work just bore me out so fast. And Chris wasn't anything like that. He was just basically saying, hey man, I just love your stuff. I trust you completely. Just do whatever. And we just spent most of the time talking to each other and get to know each other. And after a short while, he had a couple of sketches that he sent to me, and I just basically started writing pretty fast. So I wrote, I think, 4 or 5 songs on top of different instrumentals. But I knew that because the sort of music that he was in, it's pretty big, it's pretty emotional. It's like it makes huge statements. So I knew I had to have a vocal that sort of goes over the instrumental, not sit into it. Because if I would write something that would be inside of the instrumental, it would just get blown away by the power of the music itself. So I had to it was just me and Chris battling for energy on the track. So I knew I had to sing in a different way, and that's when I really started to sing in a sort of commanding tone. And when I had the commanding tone, I was like, okay, maybe I should start singing about what it is to be real in this life and how we just can't stop improving ourselves as society and just keep on moving ahead. And when I had that, it just basically was done in like an hour. The thing that's released is still the first demo I written and the first mix I made.
Wow. Yeah, that again goes to show that the thought that goes into it beforehand kind of facilitates the process when you're actually sitting down and doing it.
Yeah.
And you have to feed this kind of moment in advance to have it happen.
Exactly.
Be it with an idea or with the feeling or with an emotion or with just a state of mind that you're in that brings you to that moment, I guess.
Yeah. Before that, I would just go into the studio and just write some stuff, you know, but now I really feel that my experiences I have in real life sort of siphon into my subject matter. So I have to just be really mindful of my surroundings and just talk to people a lot before I know what I want to sing about. And
so I also wanted to ask you about the work that you do with Tunnelvisions.
Yeah.
First of all, how did you meet?
Well, so at the time Emil and I met, I was still being a full-time pop music producer. So like I said, I would just get hired by people to make different sorts of pop music or indie music. So I would make the production and I would write the lyrics on top of that. But this whole process just didn't feel good to me, and I was looking for someone new to collaborate with who wasn't really into getting like a huge success right away. We just wanted to have fun and do something new into the studio. And I always had the feeling that I wanted to do something with dance music. So I got tipped by a friend of mine who said, hey, I know this guy, he's now living in Berlin. Emil was living in Berlin at the time. And he makes amazing music. And one thing I wasn't good at was making super detailed productions. I was always making something that was super sparse, only like a couple of layers and just pretty to the point. And I was listening to his music and it had so much detail and so many fine layers into it that I immediately was like, hey, I gotta go meet this guy. But he was still living in Berlin. So I sent him a message on SoundCloud saying, hey dude, I don't know you, but a friend of mine just told me about your music and it sounds great. If you're ever around, let me know. And he said, hey, listen, I'm moving back to Holland. I'm actually moving to Tilburg, the city I live in. So I was like, oh my God, I gotta arrange this guy a room. So I called everybody. I said, hey, listen, a friend of mine is moving to Tilburg. I gotta find a room for this guy. So we moved to Tilburg, and basically the first week he just came by and it was just super chill. And I said, hey man, do you smoke weed? Because I bought 2 joints. Let's just chill a bit. And then after one evening, we actually had one of the first tracks of the album done.
Wow.
And it was just such a crazy connection because he was so not into having success with the whole project. And he was just mostly into experimenting and having fun. And he's also just a super sweet guy. So, and I could learn a lot from him. So we just started making music, and then after like 2 months, we actually had an EP done. And I had some contacts in music via the songwriting stuff. I sent it to them, and it basically ended up at Atomnation. And long story short, Pascal from Atomnation, he called us and he said, listen guys, it's good, but I think there's more in it. If you guys have done this in 2 months, just wait what you guys will make in 3 months. And then we basically made an album in like 2 months. And this sort of was our breakthrough thing with Guava in it. And we're just spending every day, when we were done working, we'd just go into the studio and just make music until late in the evening. And our girlfriends at the time were just hating us for that. But we made something very special, yeah.
So you say you were doing it after work even? Like you still had a day job and then went...
Yeah, so my day job was at the time just being a studio producer. So it was quite a weird story, but I was making graphic designs at the time, and I met someone through the graphic design work who was managing artists, and he said, hey, I know you make music, we want to earn some money on the side. And that actually started becoming my full-time job. So I quit the design firm, started making music, getting hired by these guys. I always worked from 9 until 6, just producing music and writing songs. And then after 6, I had an appointment with Emil. It was the last session I had the day. It was just a session from 6 until 11. And this basically was a process that I did for like a year and a half or 2 years. So just every day from Monday until Saturday, I was just making music from 9 until 11. So this was like a crazy schedule, but I was having so much fun doing that it just didn't feel like work. It was just natural to do it like that.
Did you feel a distinction between the work you did as a hired writer as opposed to the free music? Like, can you say something about the distinction between the two?
I think mostly that, and this is quite harsh, but a lot of people that came into my studio were not having a distinct identity as artists. So what they did was look for someone else who can put some identity in their music. So we would start looking into subject matter and different sort of vibes you can put into music. But to me, this should have been on the side of the artist, not on my side. And when working with Emil was just totally different because we were forming a new sort of thing together instead of me forming something for someone else. And it really made me realize that I was always designing music, just as I did with graphic design, just looking at just super commercially, what's the target audience, what are sounds they like, what subject matter they would like, let's make a song like that. And with Emil was just, let's make something that we like, what we like to do. It was such a different experience that I fell in love with right away, and I just knew this is just something I would love to do forever, just be true to myself.
How did you get into writing music? Like you said early on that you were also writing like emo lyrics and indie stuff like that. Like
I was asking my parents for music lessons since I was a kid, but now I'm quite calm, but when I was a kid, I had like super ADHD, which was just super busy always. And I used to always be drumming on things, always have a very rhythmical interest, but I just wouldn't get a drumming kit. So my parents basically just gave me a guitar at 15 years old and said, okay, we're not gonna give you any lessons, here's the guitar, just learn how to use it. And at the time, there were not so many tutorials online. So I had to start looking for people who sort of knew how to play a guitar and start asking what an E chord is. And basically, I sucked at playing the guitar and nobody would teach me. And then I would just try singing. And all of a sudden, I would get all these melodies in my head. And it was just so natural that I didn't even have to practice. It's just something that has always been in me. I can't really explain it. But I always had sort of ignored that sort of thing. I was like, music is just not serious. My parents are just two entrepreneurs or just not into music. Always said, hey, you are talented, just go study law or economy or something. And so that's actually what I did first. But for some reason, it just had to come out. It was just...
maybe you still have inherited some of that entrepreneurial mindset, I guess. I mean, you've started a label recently, which I think is quite a step in that direction, maybe. And also shows that you're not just thinking about the music, but also trying to branch out in different areas.
Basically, it goes two ways, because one thing I'm trying to do with the label is sort of offer different artists something I would love to have had just growing up as a musician. Like I said, I'm totally self-taught, so nobody taught me anything. I don't have a lot of people to ask advice from because I didn't know a lot of musicians. So it was just me and my interest in music, and I had to find everything out myself. I had not a lot of friends in this field. And now I met all these amazing artists who just for example, don't know how to mix, don't know how to master their tracks, they don't know how to do a right arrangement. So, and I do think I have some experience in this field. So what I now do is sort of form this family around me of friends who are all like-minded, and I sort of feed them with information they can use to teach themselves how to make better music. So now, after a year of just experimenting and forming people around me and seeing what works and not, it's starting to become sort of this little family of people who are all inspiring each other, because it's not only me sharing knowledge to them, it's also them sharing knowledge to me and with each other. And it becomes this sort of crew of people just trying to be the best artists they can. And we don't do vinyl. We're going to try to do one vinyl this year, but we mostly do digital, because when it's out, when it's done, you just want to put it out. You just want to get it out there. You just don't want to be waiting for months on end just to get everything on the physical side of things. And I just want people to be successful in what they do. That's mostly why I do it.
I also saw that the last release was an alias of yours. Yeah. Is that something that you're going to pursue more, like branching out into different musical areas under different names? Was that like a conscious decision?
I think it sort of depends on what your goals are. Like we as musicians obviously have to have like some sort of base we can keep building on and sort of have a profile that can get bigger. But we all know that having a profile and like this sort of world of associations around the profile can also sort of limit your creativity in a way, because you are afraid to experiment out of those boundaries. So one thing I just decided to do is, hey, I just want to make Balearic music, and I want to make something that's a little bit more breakbeat with a lot of percussion, and it doesn't fit Tunnelvisions, it doesn't fit Coloray. So fuck it, let's just do it like on a new alias. And maybe there's something new will come out of the alias too, but it's not a focus point to have that being a sort of commercial success. It's just mostly me having more output. And like things start to change when you make music full time. Like you can sort of try to make the next dance floor banger each and every day, but this gets boring so fast. So there comes a point where you just say, okay, today I'm going to do something different. I listen to Mark Barrett. I want to make Balearic music. So that's basically just how it goes. And maybe this will sort of end up with me having just like 8 aliases. I don't know. Maybe I will just be able to do it all on the one thing. Just I try not to think too commercially about the aliases. Just have a lot of fun with it.
I was also interested in how you approach the live process, like the shows. If you play on your own, when you play together, if you DJ, if you play live.
I actually got to start out with saying how Coloray even came to form, because every song I did ever was actually meant for Tunnelvisions. So I was making music, say for example Gazing Eyes. I actually wanted it to be a Tunnelvisions track at first. I was like, hey, this is something new I want to go to with a new sound with the project. But it's always a collaboration, and if someone else doesn't really feel it you're in a collaboration with, you got to make a decision. So we both made the decision, this is not coming out. But when it was sitting on my computer, I started to feel like, hey, this music is so personal to me. Like it really had a message that sort of I kept feeling throughout the months after. So I just decided with Emil together that it was supposed to be a new project and that it's going to be a solo project. But then over time, especially now when I'm getting DJ shows or maybe even live, you start to think about how does it sort of balance out with Tunnelvisions? What's the sort of deal with that? And the one thing I sort of found out that the music is just much darker. In essence. So how I'm feeling most of the time is not that I'm super happy always, like Tunnelvisions might have the sort of appearance, but behind screen I'm mostly feeling like up and down a lot of the time. And Coloray is just a sort of downside project, and Tunnelvisions is more like the happy thing. So Emil and I can just be happy, and I can just be a little bit sad in the studio when I'm by myself. So that's mostly the thing. So then it's just selecting music on, okay, maybe this is sort of music that's more like happy sad, then sort of goes into the Coloray thing, but this is just overly happy, then sort of goes into the sort of Tunnelvisions thing. And that's how I'm still trying to balance everything out.
When I was traveling a lot, or when I have a lot of gigs and you're on the plane all the time and you're waiting, and then suddenly you from one moment to the other have to socialize, you just meet new people all the time, and then you play in a club, you're surrounded by dancing bodies, very high intensity, very high energy level, and then you go back into your hotel room, you're on your own again, you're waiting, you're traveling. Do you have some kind of routine, some kind of things to deal with that?
Yeah, actually I do. When we started touring with Tunnelvisions, it was actually the first time of me just going out of my studio. Like I had DJ shows before, but not the size that Tunnelvision was having. Like we now almost play every weekend, sometimes 2 or 3 countries in one weekend. So I would start to notice in the first year that I would get super anxious of meeting all these promoters that I had to be nice to, and always trying to be the best person I could be, because it's also business. You want to leave like a positive image. But then I start to sort of have this mentality, try to visualize it as you're on a river and you're a rock. You're just basically a rock in a rapid river, and nothing can move you. You're always stable. And I think it's also a result of me just being into meditation right now, just sort of having this sort of balance in my head of not having all the external factors come in super directly in my mind. So now when I go to someplace new or try to meet new people, I just try to be that sort of rock in the river, just try to see how everything comes. And once it comes, I just try to react to that. And the last years, I certainly have been growing in this field, but I knew that there was a time where it was just weighing so hard on me. I don't know if you have the same, but like as artists, we are all just a little bit insecure in a way. There's nobody I've met who doesn't have some form of insecurity when it comes to social things, because it's easier to sort of talk through your music than it is than talking in real life. But just saying these sort of things or saying you're nervous just sort of takes out the whole pressure, and then combined with the whole meditation thing, it works. Yeah. And don't drink alcohol that much. That also works.
Yeah, if you're partying for a living, you can't party hard every weekend.
And this is actually what sort of makes you realize that you have people who are professional and people who just still see it as a part-time thing, you know? Mm-hmm. But once you try to do it on a professional level, you obviously you have a different generation before us who thought differently, but I just try to be more mindful of things and try to be super, serious about it without being overly serious. So
actually, Sven Väth, who I think is the godfather of the party, he once said, it's in German, so I'm trying to translate it properly.
You can say it in German.
Spaß mit Ernst betreiben. So it means like being serious about having fun.
Yeah.
And I really love that approach, and for some reason that always stuck with me.
That's a nice philosophy to live by, I think.
Yeah.
But still, you're always gonna have anxiety for a show. Like I'm gonna perform a live show with Coloray this year, and it's actually one of the most scariest things I will ever do, because it's on a main stage on a big festival. So it's like singing in front of 2,000 people. I'm gonna do like a live thing, so I gotta do the programming right. It's actually a lot of things to think about. And one thing that would sort of fuck me up is that if I would get too nervous, I won't be able to do all the actions I need to do to get a successful job done. So this is also why I just meditate daily, because I know when I get on stage and I get a panic attack, which can sometimes happen, then I gotta be able to solve it. I gotta be able to say to myself, okay, you're having a panic attack, you're having anxiety, calm yourself down, it's okay to have this, just focus on what you're doing. I also see it as sort of winning over from your own mental state of mind to sort of be able to sort of manage these feelings. And there are a lot of people who don't experience these feelings, like having to perform in front of a lot of people or being super self-critical while standing in front of 2,000 people. But for me, it's just actually a cool challenge that I want to win.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's going to be like the first...
Yeah, it's the first public live show, yeah. It's actually, man, to me, it's next to being pretty scary, it's also a lot of fun, because this festival I'm playing at, it's called the Draaimolen Festival, and it's actually a huge festival in the Netherlands that's in my city. And where I live in Tilburg, it's just a super small community. There are not a lot of musicians over there. So having a huge festival like Draaimolen is sort of comparable to something like Dekmantel. Then being able to play on the main stage, doing a first live set, if it's successful, it's not only a victory for me, but it's going to be a victory for the whole city and everybody who's in the creative field over there. So that's why I really have to succeed in this thing. Yeah.
Do you have ways to get hyped up for a gig when you've just been traveling for 20 hours?
Yeah, one of the things is don't listen to your music too much outside of the club environment, because you can get so tired of the things you're playing. Like of course I have favorite songs which I would listen to like non-stop at home, but then I would come to the club and then I would have listened to the song like 30 times. It would start to get old. So first of all, I want to play music that I really like. If I don't like the music, then I cannot be into the music, so I'm not performing. I'm just standing there as a glorified Spotify player. And but with the live show, it's different because Coloray in a form is a sort of overly self-confident persona I'm putting up on stage. Even though from the inside I'm quite anxious, on stage it needs to be like a super strong persona. So I do have to find a way how to work myself up, because like every song I've written so far is pretty strong in the vocal area. So I'm still trying to find a way, but I'm sure I'll find it.
That's interesting. I'm the same. I don't really listen to a lot of dance music at home for pretty much the same reasons, that I want it to be fresh when I hear it played out by myself, and to be excited and to feel this excitement, and sometimes even play things that you might have listened to only one time at home, and you're looking forward to that one moment where you play it, and then you get to experience the excitement and the freshness together with everyone around you, and you can just spread this. I share that approach very much.
But I think one thing that's sort of overlooked in that a good live performance, there needs to be a sort of element of risk. And a risk on the side of live performance, in that anything could go wrong at any time. But also while DJing, that you as a DJ need to feel some sort of risk while playing. Otherwise you won't have this sort of feeling of victory every time you do a good mix. So one thing I actually do is that, like you said, sometimes I just have only listened once to the music, maybe only like 20 seconds, and I just know this is something I'm going to play. But then I'm just going to see how it turns out. Just trust my feelings. And sometimes at the last minute, it's like, fuck, how I'm going to solve this. But then when you do, the crowd feels this as well. It's like, he just won. He just won over his insecurities and stuff. So yeah, that's actually one of the bigger ones for me. So I always improvise DJ sets. I never like make playlists or whatever, just have my 2000 tracks and just go there.
So this is the second part of my interview with Coloray. Almost 6 months later, I was able to catch up with him again via Zoom.
It's so weird, like when we last spoke, everything still seemed really normal. And we were speaking about our future plans. You were telling me about this big festival that you're going to play at in your hometown, and speaking about being like stage fright and all of that. That's all gone now.
There was a way to come over the stage fright by not doing the show.
Oh man.
No. So I had been practicing for a couple of months on this field, just having a mic in my hand. I found a way to get over the stage fright. It was just by practicing each and every day. So I was just practicing with how do I handle the mic on stage. And there even was a point where I was using a mirror to sort of watch my body movements. You know, performing as a singer can be quite different than performing as a DJ. But then Corona happened and the whole plan just got cancelled. Not the plan to do a live show, but just the whole festival, everything got cancelled. So for me, it's just super weird to think on how the life in general has changed, and how my perspective on music and what it can mean in the next year and a half has sort of changed for me. I don't know if it's the same for you, but did you get some sort of different perspective throughout the last couple of months, or what's the...
I felt a new way of listening to music because of the time that I had to really go and take my time and listen, which for some reason I haven't done too much before, especially when it comes to dance music. Like we were talking, we use it as a tool, so we try not to listen too much at home to stay excited. And I started to fall back in love with listening to this kind of music at home as well, and also probably for making up for the missed opportunities to go out and actually dance and play it. So that's for sure. But I haven't really been that inspired to make a lot of my own, especially dance music, I must say.
Yeah, it's very difficult to sort of imagine your music in a place right now. And especially for dance music, I try to envision those moments on the dance floor where you've been as a visitor or where you've played as a DJ. And that sort of thing is just much more difficult to do now. So, but for me, actually, it's been quite freeing in a way. So I've been noticing that I have been very creative. The first couple of months, I wasn't making a lot of music. But first, I thought I had to re-educate myself. I was like, okay, this is not going to be a good period for music for the next year. So what am I going to do? So I decided I'm going to expand on my graphic design skills. I started graphic design. So I decided to pick up 3D design even more than I did before. So I just spent 2 months on just full-time 3D graphic design. And then I started to feel creative again. And now I'm actually working on a new album. But at the time, it felt like, oh shit, it's not the best time to be creative right now.
I saw that you actually did the artwork for the new Permanent Vacation record.
Yeah, and this was one of the things I set a goal for myself for, because I had been making covers for a long time, but it was always 2D, and it felt like I needed to do something new creatively. So I started like making 3D donuts and stuff. Like, it's very basic, like make a chair, make a donut. Like, I follow all these tutorials. I do my stuff in Blender for anyone who's listening and then wants to know what I do. But then I started to build this visual world, and now what I'm actually working on after the Permanent Vacation EP is a visual album. So this sort of new opening to be more creative in a visual field and sort of start to blend with my music. And now I'm sort of thinking, hey, this period of taking a break of music and making some visual art has opened a door to so much more creativity than I had before. So it's actually very positive for me. But it didn't feel like that at the time. It felt different, of course.
I also feel that especially 3D in a way really fits the kind of headspace that we have been in collectively, staying at home, seeing the same things over and over, and maybe trying to imagine a different place to travel to with the music, but also with the visuals. It's really
exactly
fitting.
One of the first things I started thinking about is, okay, so people cannot watch me at a festival, they cannot watch my live show, but is there a way how I can bring myself to them? So I was researching this 3D design, and then I started looking up different companies online, and I found this company who was specialized in sort of digitizing 3D movements. So not motion capturing, but they have this volumetric film studio, which basically means that you can stand in this sort of sphere of 64 cameras with you in the middle of it. And I started experimenting with that, bringing my performance into 3D space. So what I'm actually working on right now is, instead of me performing at a festival, is me making a 3D live performance for everybody. But this is still like, I'm doing a lot of research right now in how do I do this, and it's a new thing for me. Yeah.
Did you also keep on with your meditation practice? That is one thing that I kind of missed out on digging into deeper when we first spoke, but something that I do as well, meditate daily, and it also really helped me to deal with a lot of the things in the last few months, and also to kind of build a structure into my day.
Well, the first, when Corona emptied my whole tour schedule, I actually was very depressed for like a couple of weeks, because it felt like I had been working pretty hard for a couple of years to get some sort of momentum going, and it felt like me with Coloray, but also with Tunnelvisions, we're just getting enough momentum that we could start touring. We weren't even that far in our sort of career path, if you can sort of call it a career path. So I actually was very down, and I didn't know what to do. So the meditation thing sort of took a back seat for the first couple of weeks. But then for some reason, I knew that if I wanted to be successful in any way in 2021, I had to work on myself mentally as well. So I started meditating again. But next to that, I started paying a lot of attention to what I eat, to physical movement and how I work out. So it actually became even more extreme in a way in how health conscious I was. And now I actually use running as a meditation form. So I don't run with music. I count my steps. It's like breathing on your steps, and then you get into this sort of flow state, which then becomes a sort of meditative state. Yeah, I cleared my mind a bit, and throughout time I started to get a different perspective on what this sort of situation means, the positive side that this Corona thing can also have, because I do feel a lot less pressure of the music industry, if you can call it like that. You know, it's just gone. I'm just creative right now, which is in itself a blessing, you know.
Money is a thing that is also, of course, important. Like, have you been able to keep up fine? Do you have other streams of income maybe? Or
luckily, Tunnelvisions has had such success on like Spotify and with streaming that we can sort of live off these royalties. And it's mostly because we have super low costs. Like, we don't live like in a big main city where the rents are pretty high. We decided to stay in small cities where the rents are pretty low, and this is in our advantage right now. So we can still have like this sort of lifestyle. We can focus a lot of creativity. So financially, I'm okay, but I did stress out a lot at the beginning because before Corona happened, I invested all of my money in upgrading my studio, and out of that, we made a new album for Dynamic. And also I made a couple of new EPs for Coloray. And the idea was to start touring in the summer and sort of get back that money. But this didn't happen. So I had like this huge financial risk, which didn't pay itself back. So I was super stressed out. But then we had a positive thing with the streaming income. It helps when you have like a track which has like 7 million plays on Spotify. It really helps too. But I was so stressed out, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie.
You talked about the album on Dynamic. That came also a little bit later than it was supposed to, right?
Yeah, I think the album was scheduled to release the month that Corona happened. So first it got announced, and then it got postponed by the label until further notice. So it really felt like the rug was pulled out underneath us. So next to not touring, which is, if I'm being honest, fine with me, my most passionate product, making music, was also cancelled. And that was the thing that maybe hurt me the most. But then we rescheduled and we made a new plan, and we even got like a message from Malad and Soderman sending us positive vibes. You know, it was a whole team effort. Like, the whole team was on board of this. It was a super difficult situation for all of us, but we stuck together in making a new plan. And the reactions to the album were pretty good. But I'm not going to lie, in that it's weird to launch like a dance album in like a period where there's no parties. But still, I'm just super proud of the whole result, and Emil is too. And it's just such a labor of love, you know.
Another thing that you said that kind of stuck with me was that you're really inspired by real life experiences and things that happen to you. But also you've been very political and getting inspiration and energy from there. How was that during the lockdown, when there were not a lot of real life experiences, but a shit ton of political news to digest?
Yeah. Well, so there's this track that hasn't been released just yet. It's called Sponsored Revolution. And in the track, I sort of described this whole situation of society crumbling down, and you as a member of society needing to sort of revolt. And I wrote this song before Corona happened, but when Corona happened, it felt like I had to make the exact opposite of what was happening in society. So the Sponsored Revolution song was made when society was still in this sort of bubble, thinking that everything was okay, but I was feeling that there was something bubbling up anyway. Then Corona happened, and all over the world you saw everybody losing their jobs, but also with Black Lives Matter and all these different sorts of movements coming up. For me, that felt inevitable. But when this was sort of happening, I felt like I had to give people something new instead of just deepening that wound. It felt like I had to bring something that would maybe get people out of that sort of situation again. So I started realizing that I'm always riding on the opposite end of the spectrum where society is at the time. So when society is in sort of a bubble, like a mirage, and everything is perfect, I want to write about that maybe it's not that perfect. When everything is happening and everything's crumbling down, I want to give people some sort of hope. So that was a sort of total shift. And that's when, for example, the track Romantics came to light. It was just a super positive track and very happy. And it's really meant to give people some sort of happy feeling, you know?
The vocals on the B side of that, is it Is it you?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So first this track started out as being a sort of two-step sort of groove, and then I was sort of singing in this, this sort of early 2000s garage two-step sort of R&B flair. It didn't fit at all. But then I thought, hey, let's just sample this sort of thing. And then when I had "Is This the Future?", it was sort of just resonating with what I was feeling at the time, because Corona had just happened. Is this the future? What the fuck is going to happen? But out of that question of what's the future going to be, a whole new idea for an album actually sort of came to light. So then is when I started working on another album. This is what I'm working on right now.
Do you miss playing live? Do you miss being on stage and performing?
Yeah, this is a question I've been asking myself a lot the last couple months, and I still don't really have an answer. I think I really miss connecting with people on stage or off stage. Like, I miss coming to Berlin and just having dinner with you, and then having a super nice show where I can meet all these different people. Do I miss trying to be a superstar DJ in front of a big stage? I don't know if I miss that, if I'm being honest. I'm a musician at first. I don't miss flights at all. At all. I don't miss flights at all. It actually made me anxious. Being constructed in like a tin can. I'm 2 meters tall, like I'm so big. But if I miss DJing, yeah, I miss playing music. I miss the energy. I miss having that perfect mix. I miss bringing people something to look forward to, and bringing people hope, like a good energy. I miss giving that. Yeah, I miss that. Do you miss it? Do you miss playing out?
There are certain moments that I miss. I miss this feeling of being in the now and having this kind of experience like everything is perfect right now. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. And it's something that I very rarely get in normal life. I get it when I'm in the studio making music, but that is very personal. I'm on my own. But having this kind of experience with other people around me is something very, very special and very powerful for me. Yeah. I'm looking for something similar, but I haven't quite found it yet.
Well, I started offering a helping hand to people around me. I started to invite a lot of musicians to my studio, just younger musicians in my city or just outside my city, to have like a small meetup, sort of teaching them the ins and outs of producing. That sort of gave me that feeling of community, being together. That's also the best feeling in the world, right? When you're in a club and everything feels like it's all gelled together, like everybody is together and you're not the center of the party, you're part of the party, and the music is just flowing out you. That's the thing I miss the most, like the oneness, if you can sort of call it like that.
Is anything on the horizon yet?
There are also a couple of shows here and there, like seated stuff. We played Kiesgrube a couple of weeks ago, which was very fun, and we really noticed that people were trying to dance, but they weren't allowed to dance, so it was just very weird as well. Then we had to play slower and less intense. It's just super weird, but also pretty fun. We played Marktkantine, which was very fun. It was a seated event, actually an album release party for like 30 people, which was a lot of fun. Everybody went crazy. It was just so much fun. But if there's anything coming up, I think Emil and I are going to head back into the studio together pretty soon, because we've been mostly working individually and we're not focused on shows anymore. We're focusing on making music, and that's the main thing. We're musicians at heart. We're playing as DJs, but I'm a musician first. So
yeah, I hope there's gonna be even more ways in the future where you can actually make a living as a musician or as an artist, or maybe even as a DJ, without the need to be on the road constantly. That's been a big problem in our part of the music scene for a while. So I'm just hoping that something will develop out of this.
Hopefully. I think one of the things I notice is that sort of the rule set of the music / DJing, the dance industry has sort of changed, right? So the rule set has changed, which means there needs to be a different design for the rule set. So it's just a way of rethinking what's possible instead of thinking of things that are not possible. So I think in due time there will be new initiatives. But if you look at the whole dance industry in general, it was not a sustainable thing anyway. If you look at personal health, DJs were just getting less and less healthy because of the touring schedules. If you look at the environment, it was just so bad for the environment. People just flying in and out with private jets anyway. And if you look at creativity as well, when you tour a lot, the touring schedules the big name DJs have, it's just not good for creativity. So I think it's also a phase where people can get to sort of rethink a new situation of where we want our music industry to be formed. But we'll see in due time, right?
Okay, I'm personally involved, but I think what Dixon did for his first Boiler Room stream was pretty amazing, because he actually reached out to a lot of the artists that he was playing in that stream to release the music at the same time that the stream is going online. And the sales went to the artists directly. And this goes to show that there's also this maybe divide between the DJ on the one side and the ones who are producing the music on the other side, which needs to be bridged in a way. How this is being done, I don't know. This is only one example where I think it was done well, but most of the times you don't even know what the people are playing. Also, I talked about this with Sandrino. I'm very torn about this whole streaming thing anyway.
Well, I think the club quarantine, the club quarantena thing is very interesting, but it's more from a designer's point of view why I think it's interesting. Trying to build a virtual world, trying to give visitors a sort of club-like experience online. The United We Stream initiative was very good to just get some sort of financial support for the club industry. I think that was very good as well. But for me personally, there were 2 streams I watched where I partied at, but then I actually got so sad of just being in my home and just dancing to like YouTube. I was like, fuck. Everything just sort of came to an end, and this is the proof. This is the situation we're in right now. So I actually started to ignore all those streams because I sort of got confronted with the reality every time when I saw a stream like that. But I also think that virtual clubs are going to become like a new thing. I actually hope they do, because it would be fun to be in VR, just walk around like, hey, what's up, man? You're partying hard right now, right? I don't know. It would be so much fun to be at a virtual club.
I'm always thinking about something when it comes to virtual reality, how little sounds are being thought about. Like, I want to move my head and I want the sound to move with it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that could be improved. Apart from that, it's...
Well, it will never be a replacement for real life, but what if we just have different sort of products? You can choose your experience. You can choose to go out. You can choose to maybe travel by train or by plane to a different party. But maybe there is an alternative of going to a virtual club where you can have like this amazing experience, meet different people, and have something that feels otherworldly instead of something you could experience in real life. So this sort of, for me, feels actually super creative, creating virtual worlds where you can just get lost in. It actually is the goal of a club, right? Just getting lost, just going to a place like a festival, just going somewhere and being in an environment and getting lost. Could also be done in virtual reality. But maybe I'm just using virtual reality as a beacon of hope right now. I don't know. I'm just hoping to have like super cool experiences pretty soon.
This is totally not for the podcast, but I started to watch these 4K videos on YouTube of people just walking the streets.
Of course. Yeah, I did the same.
What have we become?
I did the same, and I was like, this is my life right now. I'm doing this. I'm watching someone walking through woods in Japan.
Yeah. Shit.
You can put this podcast. It's so much fun. It's
the perfect ending too.
Thank you for listening to Talk to the Artist. This show is powered by Paradise Distribution. You can find a playlist for this episode on our Spotify channel or over at www.torturetheartist.com. There you'll also find links and more information about today's guest. Please follow me on Instagram at Eragram and subscribe to this podcast for more interviews with your favorite artists.